Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
8:06 on O'Connor and Company. This is our fourth hour of 4 hours of morning radio frivolity. And if you missed any of it, make sure you get the podcast. We spoke with Kurt Schlichter earlier, and then Joe DeGeneva. Just talked to Neil Parrott, and coming up in 30 minutes, we'll get a preview of tonight's Washington Commanders Monday Night Football game with a Washington Post sports reporter, Cindy Boren. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Julie, I'm hesitant to dive too deep into this next topic with our guest, Ned Ryun. He's CEO of American Majority. His book is American Leviathan, The Birth of the Administrative State and Progressive Authoritarianism. I'm hesitant here, Ned Ryun, because let's face it, this is the morning show of record here in Washington, D.C., and I'm guessing that many people listening right now are part of that Leviathan.
Yeah, no, I appreciate being on with you guys, but it's a conversation that has to happen, Larry. I mean, this is something that I don't think a lot of the American people understand.
Yeah.
That's been going on for over 100 years. The progressive movement rejected the Constitution and in its place put in this administrative state, which is an unelected bureaucracy with unelected bureaucrats who think they're the ones that decide. And that really was the genesis, in my mind, of the conflict between Donald Trump and D.C. It's about who decides.
100%. And your book is so great in terms of laying out the history here and how we got here. And I really do think people need to buy this because people use words deep state, administrative state, permanent political class, all those different euphemisms. Right. But Ned, I'd love to focus, if we could, on some of the solutions you had there. Because I bring this up with people who have worked here in Washington forever, and they go, yeah, it's a problem, but there's literally nothing we can do about it because you can't fire people. You can't get rid of them. What do we do about this, Ned?
So most of the administrative state that we are discussing here resides inside the Article 2 executive branch, which, by the way, is unconstitutional when you figure that they are actually legislating and have some judicial authority, which I'll talk about the Supreme Court stepping up to the plate finally this summer on that front. But the head of the executive branch is, of course, the duly elected president of the United States. And if a president decides that he rejects the premise, as Donald Trump does, that the administrative state is legitimate, I lay out in the last chapters the reduction in force exercises, the Schedule S, all of these things that a powerful executive as head of that branch can actually do. Because, again, if you believe in that unified theory, all of the departments and agencies under the executive, who is head of the executive branch, actually report to him. They answer to him. And, again, this is another fundamental problem, Larry. They think that somehow those departments and agencies inside the executive branch are actually not really accountable to the duly elected representative of the American people. And you will hear this, Larry. If and when Trump is elected and he comes back in office January of 2025, you are going to hear all of the screeching and hissy fits from these people saying we don't have to answer the head of the executive branch because we need to be independent. That's not that was never how it was set up.
You mentioned that you were going to talk about the Supreme Court, and I assume you're talking about Chevron. Tell us, has that changed everything? Is it going to allow there to be some action? I know Chevron dealt really with how laws are interpreted, but do you think that this could be the start of the end for some of this administrative state?
I do. The Supreme Court stepped up and said we're overturning Chevron deference, which is, again, judicial deference to the statutes and regulations coming out of the Article 2 unelected bureaucrats. And they said, we're not doing that anymore. Right. And for a host of reasons, one being we do not believe that an independent judiciary, which was very important to our founders, should be deferring to any of the other branches on decisions that should be in the Article 3 branch. So that was one decision. The other one that people aren't really paying as close attention to that I thought was just as good for us is the Supreme Court said the SEC tribunals are unconstitutional. People are like, wait, what's going on? Departments and agencies, a lot of them have their own administrative law tribunals, shockingly, that 90% of the time rule in favor of that department and agency. And the Supreme Court said, no, those are not constitutional, undermines an independent judiciary. Again, the founders wanted an independent judiciary because they thought the British courts, if this sounds familiar, let me know, British courts were rubber stamping what they believed were authoritarian policies from King George III, Parliament, and the King's ministers. They said, we're not going to have a rubber stamp judiciary. We'll have an independent one. And so the Supreme Court said this summer, we're not doing this because those are unconstitutional. Also, it annihilates the idea of the Seventh Amendment, which is a right to trial by jury. So there's been some important decisions made by the Supreme Court this summer that have caused cracks in the foundation of the administrative state. And if a powerful executive comes in as the head of the executive branch in January of 2025, game on.
We're speaking with Ned Ryan. His book is American Leviathan. And let's get back to a little bit of the, I guess the history, but also where we are right now in terms of how bad it is. You hear these terms thrown around a lot, a G6 or a G7, an SEO, an HEO. This whole ranking thing, it sounds like the military. Explain to us, Ned, how that ranking of civil employees, civil servants as they call them, how that even was instituted, and why, when you get to a certain level, can you not be fired? Where did this permanent protected tenure thing come from?
They have kept on insulating themselves. But, Larry, the whole point, back at the very beginning of the progressive movement, and this should not be surprising to anybody, they decided when we put the administrative state in place, the only separation they were interested in, Larry, was separating out these bureaucrats from any political accountability, because they thought that was a corrupting influence. So now you have this massive, sprawling Leviathan in which they have insulated themselves, very hard to fire, but there are steps in that last chapter I lay out that you can reclassify people. Once you reclassify them, you can actually fire them. And you're right. I mean, there's all these steps. You get to the GS-12, GS-13, all those levels and the various steps within, they're kind of like little dictators inside their various departments and agencies, and there's no accountability. This to me is the point I want to hammer to people. When you have unelected, consolidated power, it tends to become authoritarian because there's no accountability. The people didn't elect them. The people can't fire them. And on a fundamental level, what is the course for redress of grievances if the unelected bureaucrats are doing the actual governing? What are the steps for the American people to go, hey, we don't think this government's actually serving us?
Right.
Yeah.
How are we going to get representative democracy back? Which, by the way, most people in D.C. gave up on representative democracy a very long time ago.
Right. Now, is there the will to do this if Trump wins? Do you think in your conversations with his people or with Congress, is there a
Not
real
Congress.
will to do it?
No, please.
Yes, but not Congress. I got it. But I mean,
Please don't joke this early in the morning.
I know. I've been up for hours, but I think so many of us, my colleague Inez Stepman writes on this as well, and it's so frustrating covering these issues over and over again, and then yet another year goes by and nothing's under another administration. Is there a will there this time?
So you make an interesting point. Elections come and go, administrations come and go, and the state remains. That's a real problem. So I think there's definitely the political will of Donald Trump. He has to nail a couple things, though. He's got to get the transition personnel, nail it, and he's got to get the head of PPO correct day one. Mm-hmm. And again, plumb book, those listening in D.C. obviously understand this. Those outside probably not as much. Every administration, 5,000 roughly political appointees that every administration gets to send into the various departments and agencies, call it 400 or 500 important decision makers. Got to get the head of PPO right, that's on the same page with Trump, that believes the administrative state needs to end. Hire the right people to send the various departments and agencies to actually implement the will of the duly elected president of the United States. And then obviously, things flow from there. So Trump did not get PPO right in his first administration. Johnny DeStefano for 3 years was not on the same page with Trump. He got it right in the last year with Johnny McEntee. He needs to have somebody like a Johnny McEntee day one running presidential personnel.
PPO and OMB, those are sort of the two hinge points, right? Yeah.
They really are.
Ned Ryan could very well be a name in the mix for a job like that after writing a book like this, Ned. We'll leave it there, but let's talk again between now and Election Day, and certainly if Trump wins, let's talk right after Election Day because these conversations will sort of set the tone for what needs to get done. Ned, thanks so much for joining us and for writing this book. It's really important.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
That's Ned Ryan, again, American Majority, and the book is American Leviathan, The Birth of the Administrative State and Progressive Authoritarianism. Just for the history of it, it's important to figure out how we got here, but I love the fact that there's solutions.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We are greedy in this country, aren't we, Julie Gunlock? I keep hearing it from my liberal friends. It's like people who want to make money, keep their money, not give their money to the government through coercion and taxation. You're just greedy. You're just greedy. In fact, remember this statement from Michelle Obama at the Democratic National Convention.
She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed.
And it means a lot coming from her, right? Because, you know, they
How
have
many houses does she
they have
own?
their post-presidency and they got their income, and they, you know, but we like to draw the line. Which brings us to this odd development.
This is so weird.
Michelle Obama was seen over the weekend at a Costco hawking a soft drink beverage that she is now a co-founder of and strategic partner for. She was standing at a Costco giving away free samples so she could sell her healthy beverage because apparently she doesn't have enough money.
This has very Meghan Markle vibes. I feel like it's like the reintroduction, the relaunch of Michelle Obama. And don't forget, Michelle Obama was a businesswoman. She served on several boards. One of them, I can't, Treehouse, I think, was they produced crackers and other snack foods. And then, you know, she tried to
like
redo.
Keebler?
Yeah, something like that. It was Treehouse, though.
Okay.
And then, you know, her husband was elected. She came into office as the first lady, or office, I should say. She assumed the role of first lady.
Yes.
And then ruined school lunches. Poor
Right.
kids were eating gruel. It was disgusting for a couple of years. And she did it on this, like, you know, get sugar out,
This is a great point. And it was never really her agenda until she got into the White House. And then she establishes this brand of, she's all about health for our children and childhood obesity and all that stuff.
Yeah, and now she's hawking soda drinks.
Right.
It's really
No, but
interesting.
listen to her at the I don't know if you can hear
She
it
said
because
it's healthy,
it's sort of
yes.
far away, but you can hear her say how healthy it is. Yeah, really hard to hear.
Really hard to hear.
But the whole idea is, you know, don't give them Capri Sun, don't give them soda, don't give them those sugary drinks, give them this healthy
because
drink.
apparently I need a 10th house. But it is interesting, and I will not say that this is unhealthy.
How healthy
okay?
is it?
It has carbonated water. It has apple juice concentrate. Some people have a problem with giving kids juices, a lot of sugar, soluble vegetable fiber. So obviously they've added fiber to it so that your body takes longer to break it down. Okay. So there's fiber, there's natural flavors. Some people get really nervous with natural
that's very vague.
well,
What's a natural flavor?
That is just basically artificial flavorings. Okay. Or it says natural flavors. I'm not, but it's likely artificial flavor. And then citric acid, lime juice concentrate, ascorbic acid, stevia leaf extract. So one of these sugar replacements. So the bottom line is she's hawking this drink. And personally, I don't think kids need that kind of stuff.
Right. What's healthier than water?
Right. Right. And this is a woman who wouldn't even let, like, you know, full fat milk in the lunches.
Right.
But we'll sell this stuff, which is chock full of ingredients that probably nobody wants their kids to have. So I find this fascinating. And again, this is a woman who clearly has enough money. So I don't really understand.
Why does she
this
need to be the
partnership.
co-founder of this
Yes.
Plexi Nutrition? There's also celebrities there, but it's all, and they're selling it at Costco.
Maybe give your name to a charity.
There
you go.
It's 8:21. You know, we don't have any pandas here at the National Zoo because Joe Biden.
That's right. That's right.
And we're hoping to get the pandas back at some point. But imagine being in China and not having pandas in your zoo. I mean, it's understandable why we wouldn't have pandas right now, right? I mean, because they're not indigenous to this area or anything.
Right.
But I just assume in China that pandas are like squirrels, right? They're just like everywhere. You're just like, you go to the park and there's pandas running up the tree.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think they're endangered, aren't they? There's not many left. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's understandable. If you see pandas, they just sit there and eat and not do anything. They have no way of defending themselves.
Yeah, it's amazing they've lasted this long, frankly.
So there's a zoo in China now that has gotten into hot water. It's the Shanwei Zoo, where the panda that they have there at the exhibit came wandering toward the people behind the bars there watching them, and he started barking and panting and licking their hands because, of course, this panda is just a dog.
You know, the most shocking thing about this story is that the Chinese are not being honest.
Well, they eventually had to come clean. But yes, you're right. A little deceitful here from the Chinese communists who tried to.
Is this zoo in Wuhan?
They tried to put these chow chows. Basically, they painted the dogs, which has got to be some sort of abuse.
Probably not good for
They
them.
paint, including the black circles around the eyes and everything. But then the dogs were not doing their part, and they started barking. First, they denied it, and they said, "Oh no, that's not. It's not a dog. It's a panda dog." Which is a special breed of panda that also is like a cross between a panda dog, which I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
We don't want to hear. We don't want to talk about that.
Then they eventually said, "Oh no, absolutely, that's a dog. We painted it like a panda because that's a thing we do. We're known for that. We're famous for it. We're experts at it. In fact, that's it. That's the ticket.
Yeah.
Our community, they love
It
to
was a
come
joke
out.
all along.
They buy tickets to see our panda dogs, and they
Don't you
love
get
it.
it?
It's fine. Just everybody move on now. Don't drink any bat soup.
It's commie humor.
It's communist humor.
They are
Absolutely.
so funny.
By the way, we are getting giant pandas back here. They still haven't told us exactly when.
Not
though,
after
right?
they hear this.
They said by the end of 2024, we're supposed to get
I believe
pandas
'em.
here. Yeah. Well, and even if we do get back, here's what we need to do. Is like when we get the pandas, we just got to test to see if they're dogs or not.
I think we'll know.
Will we?
Yeah.
Do you think Biden will be in charge
It's
of?
pretty obvious, Larry.
Apparently
chow
not.
chow.
In China, they couldn't figure it out. If Biden trains the pandas and they start biting the Secret Service, we'll know. It's 8:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:37. It's O'Connor and Company this Monday morning. Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. And are you ready for Monday Night Football with your Washington Commanders, Julie? Are you excited? Are you?
Yes.
Don't pretend.
Yes, I am.
You're not a huge fan of the National Football League.
Don't tell our guest.
No, it's okay. You know what? Monday Night Football transcends the game. It's an event.
Is it?
Yes, it's huge. And joining us right now is Cindy Boren, Washington Post sports reporter, to give us a preview of tonight's games. Cindy, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you.
Washington on the road in Cincinnati. Cincinnati starting out 0-2, and the Commanders, thanks to a lot of field goals last week, got a win over their NFC rivals, the Giants. So, what are they building on this week going into this big game?
Well, there are concerns. I don't have to tell you this. The Commanders' quarterback, Jaden Daniels, great quarterback, lots of potential, is running too often. They need to figure out a way to keep him from taking the hits. He took, I think, 5 sacks it was against the Giants. He had 44 yards in 10 carries, which is less than he had in the opener. A good sign, a good trend, but it's still too much. He had the wind knocked out of him, and they haven't really developed the passing game. Even Cliff Kingsbury said they need to get Terry McLaurin involved. He's only had 39 yards receiving so far.
Yeah.
So they need to get that going. And the problem, I guess the good thing is that against the Bengals defense isn't terribly good against the run. This would be a good opportunity for Daniels to get Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler involved, and not run so much himself.
Is this a problem with the offensive line that needs to be because that many sacks in his sort of a lot of these obviously not designed runs, he's sort of scrambling and trying to make something happen. He needs protection.
I also think it's a rookie thing. The game comes at you fast. I think it takes him a little bit longer, maybe just a fraction of a second or two longer to see what's materializing in front of him and make the decision. I think that's part of it. And the offensive line, of course. You're asking the offensive line to give him a little more time, and that's problematic.
Meanwhile, Brian Robinson, though, the second-year running back, is really starting to see a lot more yardage now on carries and catches. I mean, are they going to try to integrate him more into the offense to take the pressure off Daniels? Oh,
definitely, particularly against the Bengals, a team that always struggles, or certainly this 2 games this season has struggled against the run. I don't know if you remember the Chiefs game from last week or saw it, but I mean, the Chiefs just gashed the Bengals defense, ran up and down the field. Of course, that was when they had Isaiah Pacheco healthy, but that will be something that the Bengals need to stop.
The Bengals are off to a disappointing start, but Joe Burrow is such a talented quarterback, and anytime he's on the field, they've got a chance. How does he match up against the Commanders' defense?
They really don't have an answer yet for replacing Joe Mixon at running back. The good news for the Bengals, they have Jamar Chase. And they'll also, even better news, they'll have T. Higgins back. He missed the first 2 games with a hamstring injury. And this is, they're going to be facing a secondary. I don't think I probably need to tell you this. The Commanders' secondary has not been particularly good.
Yeah.
There are problems there. And I would think they're going to, Joe Burrow is going to be licking his lips when he sees that secondary, I would think. And I think the Bengals are 0-2, but that's pretty typical. This is the 3rd straight season they've started 0-2, and I think it's fairly typical under Zach Taylor. I think in all but one of his 6 seasons, they've been 0-2 at the start. So, I don't think the panic is there yet in Cincinnati.
Also, just sort of big picture, because Monday Night Football is always an event, and it's always fun, and it's sort of more attention on. But this year, as we've done in past seasons, second week of the season, or I don't actually know. This is the 3rd week. Why do they have 2? Why are there 2 games tonight? It's the Jags and Bills and the Commanders and Bengals. By now, you just have the 1 game usually, don't you?
Well, get used to it. I think there's 4 or 5 weeks this season when it's going to be happening. Part of it, maybe it's a craven thing to generate ratings. If one game is poor, you can go to the other. You can go from ESPN. You can toggle from ESPN to ABC. And there's no Manning cast this weekend, so this tonight, so there's no option there. I'm with you. I want the 1 game. I don't really need to toggle back and forth. I'll be watching the Commanders game. The Jaguars and Bills game doesn't really do much for me, frankly. But I think that's there's a good reason for it.
Cindy Boren, sports reporter for the Washington Post. Thank you for an in-depth preview there. And by the way, just so you know, I need you to not be talking down on craven desire for good ratings, because we're. Morning show here in Washington, D.C. on the mighty WMAL. And you could call it craven, but, we're feeding the kids here, Cindy. Come on.
Well, and I would like to be back, so I support.
Well,
I am fully behind you.
Thank you very much. You are going to be part of our craven desire for ratings, Cindy, so get on board. Join the league.
I'm on.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
It's 8:43.
WMAL, making sense of the roads, because traffic doesn't always follow the pattern. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Remember the scandal out of Loudoun County where the members of the Board of Supervisors there used taxpayer dollars to go on those foreign junkets? And they were all, all expenses paid. And it was,
they visited a winery.
Oh, they had a luxury trip.
Yes.
And, of course, there was absolutely no tangible reason to go. It didn't do anything for the people of Loudoun County. Then they lied about it, by the way, and claimed otherwise. Now, that's a major scandal, right?
Yeah.
Good thing that sort of thing never happens in Maryland, huh? Oh, wait, it does.
Yeah.
In fact, it appears that the Democrat nominee for Senate in Maryland, Angela Alsobrooks, when she was the executive of Prince George's County, she basically did the exact same thing.
This is unbelievable. Okay, so this is a story out of the Free Beacon, I think. And
they're the only ones doing investigative reporting in this town.
Yes, exactly. Alsobrooks led a $40,000 taxpayer-funded trip to Africa. And she led this trip at the same time violent crime was plaguing her county. She got nothing out of it. It didn't result in a bunch of new contracts or business flooding into that district.
Hold on, she got some really cool pictures for her Instagram account.
Looks like they had a great time. She put someone put some pictures up on Facebook. They visited local museums, Nelson Mandela's house. They attended lectures and participated in discussions on how to boost the South African economy.
Oh, well, that's good.
And again, this was $40,000 of taxpayer dollars. Just astonishing. We want this person in the Senate, Larry?
Listen, in any other political race, this would be a huge thing, and it would make a dent, and you'd have the local media covering it. I mean, we are local media, and we're covering it for you, certainly, but nothing in the Post, nothing on local television really about it. And meanwhile, she's just charging ahead to Election Day, seemingly about 10 to 12 points ahead of Larry Hogan.
Yeah, according to this Free Beacon reporting also, she brought her daughter along for the trip.
I'm sure that came out of pocket.
She posted TikTok videos of highlights from her layover in Dubai, showing her meeting friends, touring the city, enjoying a desert ATV excursion. Well, that's obviously good for Maryland. Angela Alsobrooks, Deputy Chief of Staff John Ezrin, said the county did not pay for Alex Ashbrook's expenses on the trip. So she didn't pay for the expenses, but they paid for the trip. And it is not cheap to fly to Africa. I mean, $40,000.
So Larry Hogan has been running as, hey, I was your popular and successful governor for 8 years, and I'm not beholden to one party or the other. I'm sort of, no labels sort of guy. Vote for me because she doesn't have any experience, Ms. Alsobrooks. But he hasn't really gone after her. He hasn't actually said, this is why she's not good for you. This is why, as the Prince George's County executive, she let crime grow in such a huge way.
And took a luxury vacation.
And now, but will he use this?
Well,
will he use this story and actually try to run this race in a way to win?
Well, sadly, it looks like he's doing sort of that Romney-Obama strategy of just treating her with kid gloves. And that's not going to win the race.
No, and they're not treating him with kid gloves, by the way, nor is Westmore. His good buddy Westmore is not doing that, too. It's almost like Larry Hogan is running the race, is basically saying, don't you know who I am? I'm Larry Hogan. Let's go. And that's
good enough.
That's not good enough. Listen, I want Larry Hogan to win because I want as many Republicans in the Senate as possible to make sure that we have some leeway there on the votes if there's a close vote or what have you. But he's got to play to win, and he's not playing to win. Governor Hogan, play to win. It's 8:52. All right, that's a wrap, Julie Gunlock. Thank you for being here as always. We'll see you tomorrow. Here comes Chris Plant, though. Get out of the way. Chris needs to get into the studio. Here he comes.
Get in. Get out.
Jeez.
Move.
Are you doing like radio theater right now?
I was like impersonating an NFL player.
That's impressive.
We
should do like a radio theater thing, like only the shadow knows.
We should. My grandfather and my mother, as a child, did radio theater in the old days.
You playing some of it, if I remember.
Yeah,
right.
a long time ago, I played a little one of their shows, a Christmas Day show from the New Amsterdam Theater in New York. Yeah.
Here comes Chris Plant arriving on his horse.
There you go. And, I love Kamala. You see, Kamala, she wants to debate the ex-vice president. So I learned that Dan Quayle is coming back. Dan Quayle is making a comeback. Dan Quayle is younger than Donald Trump and a lot younger than Joe Biden. Did you know?
So he has a chance.
And he could debate Kamala. And Kamala, we'd mop the floor with Kamala. Come on, are you kidding me? I think Quayle should make a comeback.
Joe Biden is also the ex-vice president, so maybe that's who she meant.
He is an ex-vice president.
And she's running against him.
That's, where is he?
Basically.
Oh, you see, he forgot that the Indian prime minister was at the White House.